Hey, welcome back to Biz Talk TV. I'm your business host and guide, Michael Rager. And it's time we're going to invite back our good friend from Montana, Jake Linville. Jake, how are you today?
Good, how are you, Michael?
Oh, man, it's doing great, doing great. I know we were talking a little bit, fall's starting to hit everywhere. You're starting to get some leaf changes up there in Montana?
Yeah, definitely. I live in a street that has a different tree on at every house, so it's really pretty.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Awesome. So let's get into it. We're going to talk a little bit about record keeping and financial reporting today. So let's talk about, accounting software. There's a lot of them out there. And as a small business owner, how should I look at, what accounting software I should be looking at?
So I think our first meeting, we talked about what we should use. And, if you're a small business, you're likely going to use QuickBooks, but it seems that Xero is taking over the market. And as you grow from, small to medium and medium to large, you can look at, cloud-based systems such as Sage Intacct or um, NetSuite. But I do want to talk about what not to get because a lot of people don't think about what I shouldn't get. So I recommend that you don't get anything that's not cloud-based. Two, don't touch Microsoft Great Plains Dynamics with a 10-foot pole. That thing is absolute garbage. Um, and I'm dealing with it right now with a client that's using it, and it is just so cumbersome and requires so much work, and it's just so clunky. It was made before. I mean, it was good for its time, but it's well past. So, QuickBooks is good, but 100% focus on making sure that you have a cloud-based system. If you don't use QuickBooks or Xero, there are a lot of good alternatives out there that are competing in the market, but make sure it's cloud-based.
Yeah, the cloud-based things now is getting to be really important because I know a lot of us business owners, we don't back up everything the way we should. I've got a backup system on my computer that automatically backs it up, but the financials we got to make sure because especially because of the legal requirements, right? How long do we need to keep this stuff for?
So that gets asked to me quite a bit. So the general rule of thumb is 7 years.
Okay.
But if you really want to get into the details, which I won't do here, there's like if you do this or if you did that. So, like for example, if you've never filed your tax return, you got to keep it forever. And the IRS, it was funny. I was reading it again this morning. They say if you committed fraud, you've got to keep all of your tax return information forever. So, uh, 7 years is the general rule. After that, I would get rid of it. But the key piece in record retention isn't only the time period, but it's the format. So I would recommend that you move away from physical based paper because it just clutters up your office. And then you've got to, after you run out of room in your office, you've got to go and rent a storage unit. And then you got to go pay that storage unit to hold it for 5, 6 years. And it just is very costly. There are a lot of really good systems online. I personally use one called Tresorit, Tresorit. They're fantastic. There are a lot of other ones out there, but that one has a lot of security around it. And also, what I personally do is I back up my computer as well. I use Backblaze for that. So that's backblaze.com. I don't get any money for endorsing these guys. They're just really good at what they do. So 7 years, and make sure that you don't keep it in paper because one, it can catch on fire. I mean, once your place burns down, if it ever does, it's gone forever. But you want to make sure that you've got it in the cloud and backed up, at least in two places.
Yeah, I know that's really important. I remember when I first moved to Houston, a lady I was dating, she lost all of her stuff in a flood. The first floor flooded, and back in about 2000, everything was gone, and she actually got audited that year, and it made for some interesting things. So how often should we be looking at this stuff and making sure it's still good? Because I know myself, I'm like awful at taking pictures of my receipts and uploading them the way my bookkeeper wants me to. Um, what are some cheats and ways that we can get around this to get ourselves to do this, to make sure it's simple when it comes tax time?
So A lot of accountants will say that QuickBooks isn't that great, but one thing that QuickBooks does have, the QuickBooks Online version is, and I use it every day because my business is a small business, is you can just take a quick picture of your receipt and it will automatically upload, or you can set up an email address that you can just forward any emails that you get, and it will automatically log it in there, and it will be a flag for yourself or your bookkeeper to make sure that they account for that. And so, and another one that I'm a really big fan of is Brex.com. So Brex they started out in the expense, management space, but they're branching out into a little bit more than that. But they're actually dominating and taking over Concur, which has been a staple from SAP for years. They automate. So when you have a transaction with Brex, 9 times out of 10, the receipt gets auto created for you. So you don't even have to take a picture of it. You don't have to upload it. So I would recommend you go with Brex, honestly.
So is there a certain size of company when I should be looking at, updating my software and technology? Is there, when I'm below $1 million, I should look at here. When I get $1 million, are there any, simple things like that to say, hey, I've reached this point, I need to change?
Well, dollar amounts are a good measure, but from my perspective, it would be the number of transactions. So if you're selling something that's only $15 and you have $1 million in $15 transactions in sales, you need to look at a better system than QuickBooks or Xero. You need to move into a NetSuite or a Sage Intacct or something more robust. But if you're $1 million business and you've got 20 transactions in a year, you can stay on the smaller software for a little bit longer. It's not necessarily about the dollars, it's about the number of transactions.
So with those number of transactions, or I think if you're selling that $15 widget, not to make $1 million, will a lot of that be automated and just using a system like NetSuite? They can just take that automated stuff and just book it for you. It just makes it a lot easier. You don't even have to think about it.
You can have it set up so depending on if you are the manufacturer or if you're just buying and reselling. Like for example, if you are the manufacturer and you are building $15 widgets and you are selling $1 million or more, you'll want to move to a NetSuite for sure, or a Sage Intacct, because you can build all of the cost of sales, and you can build in triggers for when this piece of the process gets finished. It gets booked into the cost of the product, then it'll get put onto your balance sheet and expense as it gets sold, because it's smart enough to know where it is in the process and what it is, and it has a tag and all that. If you're doing that, I would definitely get away from the smaller systems. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think that really gets there, because I think it's just we get more complex as we go. Like you just said, the more transactions we have, the more complex it gets, and it's really the point we got to make it easier for us, because nobody wants to be manually entering this many transactions a year. I still have clients right now that are still using ledgers. I'm telling you, it's hard to get them away. It's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I even meet clients that are using Microsoft Excel. So back into what you shouldn't do. Don't use Microsoft Excel for your general ledger and your accounting system. I mean, it's great for what it is, but definitely don't use Excel. If you really like those handwritten ledgers, great. But you're going to be paying your CPA or somebody to file your tax returns. You're going to be paying them a lot of money to make sure that the numbers add up correctly and getting them filed correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So Jake, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
You can go to streamlinedcpa.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, all that fun stuff.
So that's awesome, Jake. Well, hey, I'm looking forward to next week and learning a little bit more. Thanks a lot for sharing sharing a lot about technology today, because that's something, as well as we start looking at taxes and stuff like that, we don't really want to think about. But the technology is there to make our life simpler, and it really helps if you use the right stuff, right?
Exactly. If you have a good system and you keep it up to date, filing your taxes is a lot easier.
Well, awesome, Jake. Thanks a lot. We're looking forward to seeing you next week. This is Michael Rager, your business guide here on Biz Talk TV on Now Media Television. We'll be back with more right after this.